Hardworking baker Olivia Bennett's world turns upside down when billionaire tech mogul Nathan Reed walks into her struggling bakery. One taste of her sourdough bread transports him back to his childhood, unlocking memories he thought were lost forever. Now he's determined to save her business, and possibly win her heart in the process. But can love really bloom between two people from such different worlds? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Olivia Bennett wiped flour from her forehead with the back of her hand as she checked the ancient wall clock again, 4:30 a.m. The morning bread needed to go into the oven soon if it was going to be ready when Sweetbread Bakery opened at 7. She had been at it since 3, mixing and kneading dough with hands that showed the dedication of someone who had been baking for far longer than her 28 years. The small bakery had been her grandmother's pride and joy for over 40 years. Now it was Olivia's responsibility, her burden, and her sanctuary all at once. When Gran passed away 8 months ago, Olivia had left her promising position at a high-end restaurant in Chicago to come back to Millfield and take over the family business. She couldn't bear the thought of the beloved community bakery closing its doors. She reached for her coffee mug, finding it empty for the third time. The bakery kitchen was warm from the preheating ovens, a comforting contrast to the early spring chill outside. Morning light hadn't yet begun to break through the windows, leaving her in the glow of the overhead fluorescents that buzzed like they had since she was tall enough to reach the countertops. "Another day, another dollar," she muttered to herself, a phrase her grandmother had repeated nearly every morning of her working life. Except lately, the dollars weren't adding up the way they used to. Rising costs, increasing competition from the new chain bakery across town, and the building's aging infrastructure were creating a perfect storm that threatened to sink Sweetbread for good. Olivia slid the first trays of sourdough into the oven. The starter for that bread was over 50 years old, passed down from her great-grandmother. It was their signature item, the one thing customers said they couldn't find anywhere else. If only passion and tradition paid the bills. By the time her assistant Maya arrived at 6:30, Olivia had been on her feet for over 3 hours. The display cases were filled with freshly baked goods, crusty artisan breads, flaky croissants, cinnamon rolls dripping with icing, and her personal favorite, the sourdough that carried generations of family history in every bite. "Morning, boss," Maya said, tying her apron behind her back. At 19, she was working at the bakery to help pay for community college. "You look like you've been here all night." "Just since 3, Olivia replied with a tired smile. "Coffee's fresh, though." "Bills came yesterday," Maya said hesitantly, pointing to the stack of envelopes Olivia had pushed aside when she arrived. "Want me to open them?" "No need. I already know what they say." Olivia tried to keep her voice light. No sense worrying Maya with the reality that they were 3 months behind on rent, and the landlord was running out of patience. "Let's just focus on having a good day, okay?" The morning rush came and went. Regulars picking up their usual orders, a few tourists drawn in by the hand-painted sign and the smell of fresh bread. It was decent, but not enough. By noon, the steady stream of customers had slowed to a trickle, and Olivia was calculating whether they'd even break even for the day. The bell above the door jingled, and Olivia looked up from the register to see a man she didn't recognize. He was tall, dressed in clothes that looked casual at first glance, but that her trained eye recognized as expensive. Dark jeans that fit perfectly, a light blue button-down rolled up at the sleeves, and a watch that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Welcome to Sweetbread," she said, putting on her customer service smile. "What can I get for you today?" The man didn't answer immediately. He was looking around the bakery with an expression Olivia couldn't quite read, something between curiosity and recognition. His eyes took in the worn wooden floors, the vintage display cases, the framed black and white photos of the bakery through the decades. "Actually," he finally said, turning his attention to her, "I'm hoping you can help me. I'm looking for a specific kind of bread, sourdough, but with a particular flavor, almost tangy, with a hint of sweetness in the crust." His voice was deep and confident, the kind that expected to be listened to. Olivia raised an eyebrow. "You've just described our signature sourdough. It's a family recipe, been the same for over 50 years. Something flickered in the man's eyes. Interest, perhaps even excitement. May I try a piece? Of course. Olivia cut a generous slice from the loaf behind the counter, placing it on a small plate. Can I get you anything to go with it? Butter, perhaps? No, thank you. Just as it is. He picked up the bread and took a bite. The change in his expression was immediate and dramatic. His eyes widened, then closed as he chewed slowly, deliberately. When he opened them again, he looked at Olivia with an intensity that made her step back slightly. "This is it," he said quietly, almost to himself. Then, more clearly, "This is exactly what I've been looking for. For years." "I'm glad you like it," Olivia said, feeling oddly self-conscious under his gaze. "It's our most popular item. It's extraordinary." He finished the slice and dusted crumbs from his hands. "I'd like to buy a loaf. Actually, make that 3 loaves." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As Olivia wrapped the bread, the man continued to look around the bakery, his eyes lingering on the old photos, the cracked tile behind the counter, the ancient cash register that sometimes had to be coaxed into opening. "I'm Nathan, by the way," he said as she handed him the bagged bread. "Nathan Reed." The name sounded vaguely familiar, but Olivia couldn't place it. Olivia Bennett. "This was my grandmother's place. Now it's mine." "Your grandmother had an incredible gift," Nathan said, handing over his credit card. When Olivia ran it through the machine, she couldn't help noticing it was black. One of those exclusive cards you only read about. "Thank you. She taught me everything I know about baking." "It shows." He took his receipt, hesitating before turning to leave. "I'm staying in town for a few days. I'll be back tomorrow." After he left, Maya emerged from the kitchen. "Do you know who that was?" she asked, eyes wide. He said his name was Nathan Reed. "Nathan Reed, as in Reed Technologies? The billionaire?" Maya pulled out her phone, typing quickly, then turned the screen toward Olivia. "This guy." The photo on the screen showed the same man who had just left their bakery, though in the picture he was wearing a suit and standing on a stage accepting some kind of award. The headline read, "Tech Billionaire Nathan Reed Expands Empire with New AI Initiative." Huh, was all Olivia could manage. Guess he likes sourdough. The rest of the day passed uneventfully. Olivia tried not to think about this stack of bills or the handsome billionaire who had seemed so moved by her bread. Both were equally out of her realm of normal concern. That evening, after closing up shop and sending Maya home, Olivia finally sat down at the small desk in the back office to face the bills. The numbers were worse than she'd feared. The property management company had sent a final notice, pay in full within 30 days, or vacate the premises. The equipment repair bill for fixing the walk-in refrigerator last month was still unpaid. The utility bills were marked with ominous red stamps. Olivia put her head in her hands. She had poured every penny of her savings into keeping Sweetbread afloat after Gran died. She'd even taken out a personal loan, which was now another monthly payment she struggled to make. The truth was becoming unavoidable. She was going to lose the bakery. The thought of closing Sweetbread's doors for good made her chest tight with grief. This place wasn't just a business, it was her heritage, her connection to Gran, her home. The recipes passed down through generations would be lost. The community would lose a gathering place that had served it for decades. "What would you do, Gran?" She whispered to the empty room, looking up at the photo of her grandmother that hung on the wall, Eleanor Bennett in her flour-dusted apron, smiling proudly in front of the bakery on its opening day in 1973. Olivia knew what Gran would say. Keep going until you can't, then find another way. The problem was, Olivia was running out of ways. She locked up and walked the 3 blocks to her small apartment above the hardware store. The spring evening was cool but pleasant, with the last light of day painting the western sky in shades of pink and gold. Millfield was quiet at this hour. Most of the downtown shops closed, only the diner and the bar showing signs of life. Her apartment was modest but comfortable. 1 bedroom, a small living area, a kitchenette she rarely used since she did most of her cooking at the bakery. It still felt temporary somehow, even though she'd been living there for 8 months. Perhaps because she'd never intended to come back to Millfield for good. Her life in Chicago, the career she'd been building, the friends she'd made, the city she'd grown to love, had been put on indefinite hold when Gran died. After a quick shower, Olivia warmed up leftover soup and sat on her small balcony overlooking Main Street. From here, she could just see the top of Sweetbread's sign 2 blocks away. The familiar ache of worry settled in her stomach. She had always been the practical one in the family, the planner, the one who thought ahead. But now, for the first time in her life, she couldn't see a clear path forward. Her phone chimed with a text from Maya. "That Billionaire guy left a 5-star review on our page. Check it out." Curious, Olivia opened the bakery's social media page. Sure enough, there was a new review. "Sweetbread Bakery is a hidden treasure. The sourdough bread took me back to my childhood in an instant. A flavor I'd been searching for since I was a boy. Authentic, exceptional baking that can't be found anywhere else. Will definitely return." Olivia stared at the review, particularly the part about his childhood. What memories could her bread possibly have triggered for someone like Nathan Reed? And why did it matter enough for him to write about it? Morning came too early. As always, Olivia's alarm went off at 2:30 a.m., and she dragged herself out of bed with the practiced resignation of someone who had chosen a profession that began while the rest of the world slept. By 3 o'clock, she was in the bakery kitchen, starting the day's preparations. There was something soothing about the familiar routine. The measuring, mixing, kneading. Her hands knew what to do even when her mind was elsewhere, worrying about bills and futures and enigmatic billionaires who left glowing reviews about sourdough bread. She was sliding the first batch of morning pastries into the oven when a knock at the back door startled her. It was only 5 a.m., far too early for deliveries or Maya. Cautiously, she approached the door, peering through the small window. Nathan Reed stood outside, looking surprisingly alert for such an early hour. He was dressed much as he had been the day before, though with a dark gray coat against the morning chill. Olivia hesitated, then unlocked the door. "We don't open until 7, she said, not unkindly. "I know, and I apologize for the intrusion," Nathan replied. "But I was hoping to speak with you. And I thought you might be here early." He glanced past her at the kitchen, where dough sat rising and ingredients were laid out for the day's baking. "I see I was right. How did you know?" A small smile. "Bakers keep early hours. My grandmother was one." Olivia found herself stepping aside to let him in, curious despite her initial wariness. "I'm in the middle of preparing the day's bread," she said. "But I can spare a few minutes." "Thank you." Nathan followed her into the kitchen, careful to keep out of her way. "This is exactly how I remember it," he said quietly, taking in the scene. The flour-dusted surfaces, the warmth of the ovens, the yeasty smell of rising dough. "You've been here before?" Olivia asked, returning to her work. She couldn't afford to fall behind schedule, mysterious visitor or not. Not here specifically, but a place very much like it. Nathan leaned against a wall, watching her hands as she shaped dough with practiced movements. "My grandmother owned a bakery in a small town about 100 miles from here. I spent my summers with her when I was a boy." Olivia glanced up, intrigued, despite herself. "And my sourdough reminded you of hers?" "Exactly like hers." "I've never tasted anything so similar." His expression softened with memory. "She died when I was 12. The bakery was sold, and the new owners changed everything. I've been looking for that particular sourdough ever since. And now you found it in Millfield, of all places." Olivia couldn't help smiling at the coincidence. "It seems I have." Nathan straightened. "Which brings me to why I'm here at this ungodly hour. I'd like to make you an offer." Olivia's hands stilled on the dough. "An offer?" "I want to invest in Sweetbread, become a partner." The statement was so unexpected that Olivia laughed. Why would a tech billionaire want to invest in a struggling small-town bakery? "Because that bread matters to me," Nathan said simply. "And because I can see that this place is special. It's authentic in a way that's becoming increasingly rare." Olivia resumed her work, trying to process what he was saying. "Mr. Reed, Nathan, please." Nathan, then, I appreciate the interest, but Sweetbread isn't looking for investors. It's a family business. A family business that's 3 months behind on rent and facing eviction, he said quietly. Olivia's head snapped up. How do you know that? I made some inquiries. The property management company was quite forthcoming when they realized who was asking. Anger flared in Olivia's chest. So you investigated me? My business? That's invasive and presumptuous. Nathan had the grace to look slightly abashed. I apologize for overstepping, but I'm genuinely interested in helping save this bakery. Your grandmother's legacy deserves to continue. The timer on the oven beeped, giving Olivia a moment to collect herself as she removed the pastries and set them to cool. When she turned back to Nathan, her voice was steady. Even if I were interested in taking on a partner, which I'm not saying I am, what exactly would you want in return for this investment? I can't imagine Sweetbread fits into your tech empire. I'm not looking to make it part of Reed Technologies, Nathan assured her. I'd want 2 things. First, a steady supply of that sourdough bread, wherever I happen to be in the world. That made Olivia smile despite herself. And second, the recipe. Or, more specifically, a starter from your sourdough culture. Olivia shook her head immediately. The starter is a family heirloom. It's not for sale. I understand its value, Nathan said earnestly. I wouldn't want to take it from you. I'd just want a portion of it, to preserve what your family has created, to connect with my own past through it. There was something in his expression, a vulnerability beneath the confident exterior, that made Olivia pause. This clearly meant more to him than she had initially realized. Look, she said, softening slightly. I need to focus on my work right now. The morning rush starts in less than 2 hours, and I still have a lot to do. Why don't you come back during regular hours, and we can talk more? Nathan nodded, accepting the dismissal gracefully. Of course, I'll come by later today. He moved toward the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, Olivia, I think your grandmother would be proud of what you're doing here, and I think she'd want it to continue. After he left, Olivia stood in the kitchen, thoughts swirling. How did this man, this stranger, seem to understand what Sweetbread meant to her family? And how had her life suddenly become complicated by a billionaire who was moved to tears by her sourdough? The morning passed in a blur of customers and baking. Olivia told Maya about Nathan's early visit and surprising offer, swearing her to secrecy. Are you going to do it? Maya asked, eyes wide with excitement. I mean, he could solve all our financial problems with what's probably pocket change to him. It's not that simple, Olivia replied, ringing up a customer's order. Sweetbread has always been independent. Taking on a partner, especially someone who knows nothing about baking or running a small business, would change everything. Maybe change would be good, Maya suggested. We could finally fix the roof, update the equipment, maybe even expand. The idea was tempting, Olivia had to admit. With proper funding, Sweetbread could not only survive, but thrive. She could implement all the ideas she'd been dreaming of but couldn't afford, a coffee bar, baking classes, specializing in wedding cakes. But at what cost? Her autonomy? Her family's traditions? The very soul of what made Sweetbread special? As promised, Nathan returned in the afternoon, this time dressed more formally in a tailored suit that made him stand out even more in the humble bakery. He purchased another loaf of sourdough and waited patiently until there was a lull in customers. Have you thought about my offer? He asked, when Olivia finally had a moment to speak with him. I've thought about it, she acknowledged. But I still have questions, a lot of questions. I expected nothing less. Nathan glanced around the nearly empty bakery. Is there somewhere we could talk more privately? Olivia hesitated, then nodded toward the back. My office. It's small, but it's perfect, Nathan assured her. The office was indeed small, barely room for a desk, 2 chairs, and a filing cabinet. Photos of the bakery and Olivia's family covered one wall, while the other held shelves of baking books and folders of recipes. Nathan took it all in with interest as he sat in the chair Olivia offered. First, Olivia said, getting straight to the point, I need to understand exactly what you're proposing. How much would you invest? What kind of control would you expect? How would this partnership actually work? Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm prepared to invest enough to clear all current debts, renovate the space, update equipment, and provide operating capital for at least 2 years. In return, I'd want a 40% stake in the business. Olivia's eyebrows rose. That's substantial. The bakery needs substantial help, Nathan said frankly. I've reviewed the financials. Without significant intervention, Sweetbread will close within months. And what would your role be? Would you expect to make decisions about the bakery? Because I have to be honest, I can't see how someone in your position would have time to be involved in day-to-day operations of a small-town bakery. I wouldn't be, Nathan assured her. Operationally, nothing would change. You'd continue to run Sweetbread as you see fit. I'd be a silent partner, essentially, though I would want regular updates on the business. And the starter? Olivia asked. You said you wanted a portion of it. Nathan nodded. Yes. I'd want to preserve it. Perhaps even use it in my own baking. It's important to me. Why? The question was direct, but Olivia needed to understand his motivation. Why does this particular sourdough matter so much to you? Nathan was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. When he spoke, his voice had lost some of its businesslike tone. My grandmother raised me for much of my childhood. My parents were absent more often than not. Summers at her bakery were the only times I felt truly at home, truly cared for. His eyes met Olivia's. She would let me help mix the dough, taught me how to shape loaves. The smell of that bread baking is my strongest childhood memory. He paused, collecting himself. When she died, I lost more than just my grandmother. I lost that connection, that sense of belonging. Her bakery was sold to people who didn't care about tradition or quality. They discarded her recipes, her methods. Everything she built was gone. Olivia felt a pang of empathy. She understood all too well the fear of losing a legacy. When I tasted your sourdough yesterday, Nathan continued, it was like being transported back to her kitchen. The flavor, the texture, it was exactly the same. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. Sourdough starters can last for generations if they're properly maintained, Olivia explained. Ours is over 50 years old. It's possible that your grandmother's starter and mine shared a common ancestor, so to speak. Whatever the explanation, finding your bread feels like finding a piece of my past I thought was lost forever. Nathan straightened in his chair. So yes, this investment would make good business sense. Saving a beloved local institution, preserving traditional baking methods. But I won't pretend my interest is purely objective. This matters to me personally. His honesty was disarming. Olivia had expected corporate speak about opportunities and growth potential. Instead, she was getting a glimpse of the man behind the billionaire facade, a man who, like her, was trying to hold on to something precious from his past. I need time to think about this, she said finally. It's a big decision. Of course. Nathan stood, reaching into his jacket to pull out a business card. My direct number is on the back. Call me when you're ready to talk more. After he left, Olivia sat at her desk for a long time, staring at the card in her hand. The offer was more generous than she could have hoped for. It would solve all of Sweetbread's financial problems and give the bakery a future, but it would also mean giving up complete control of her family's legacy. What would Gran say? Would she see this as a betrayal of the family business or as a practical solution to save what mattered most? That evening, after closing, Olivia found herself sitting on the bench outside the bakery, watching as the streetlights came on and the last of the day's light faded. The thought of losing Sweetbread was unbearable, but so was the thought of changing what made it special. Penny for your thoughts? Olivia looked up to see Nathan approaching, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder in concession to the warm evening. He gestured to the empty space beside her. May I? She nodded, and he sat, leaving a respectful distance between them. "I come here sometimes after closing," Olivia explained, "just to look at it, to remember why I'm working so hard." Nathan followed her gaze to the bakery storefront with its vintage sign and window displays. "It's a beautiful place. The kind of business that gives a town its character." "It's more than that to me," Olivia said softly. "It's my connection to Gran, to my childhood, to who I am." "I understand," Nathan replied, and Olivia believed that he did. "That's why I want to help save it, not change it." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching as people walked by, some nodding in greeting to Olivia. "You know everyone," Nathan observed. "Small town," Olivia shrugged. "I grew up here, left for culinary school and worked in Chicago for a while, then came back when Gran got sick." "Do you miss the city?" Olivia considered the question. "Sometimes. I miss the energy, the opportunities. I was on track to become a pastry chef at one of the top restaurants in Chicago." She smiled wryly. "Instead, I'm running a bakery that's on the verge of closing." "You could go back," Nathan suggested. "With the right investment, Sweetbread could run without you needing to be here at 3 a.m. every day. You could hire a manager, spend more time developing new recipes, maybe even split your time between here and Chicago." The possibility was so unexpected that Olivia had never considered it. Could she have both? Keep Sweetbread going while also pursuing her own dreams? "Why do you care so much?" she asked, turning to look at him directly. "Beyond the bread, beyond the memories. Why invest in saving my bakery when you could be making millions elsewhere?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, his profile thoughtful in the gathering dusk. "Because I've spent the last 15 years building a technology empire that's changed the world in measurable ways. I've made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But none of it has given me the sense of peace I felt for those few seconds when I tasted your bread." He turned to meet her gaze. "I think we're all looking for connection, Olivia. To our past, to what matters, to what's real. Your bakery represents that for me. And I think, maybe, my resources could represent a future for you. One where Sweetbread thrives, and you get to keep pursuing your own dreams too." There was no practiced charm in his words, no sense that he was trying to convince her of anything, just a simple truth that resonated with her own feelings. "I'm not saying yes," Olivia said carefully, "but I'm not saying no either. I need to think about what this would mean for Sweetbread, for me." Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be in town for a few more days." He stood, gathering his jacket. "Regardless of what you decide about the investment, I'm glad I found your bread. It brought back something I thought was lost forever." As he walked away, Olivia remained on the bench, watching his retreating figure. For the first time in months, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Morning light streamed through the windows of Sweetbread Bakery as Olivia opened the blinds, preparing for another day. It had been 3 days since Nathan Reed's surprising investment offer, and she still hadn't given him an answer. The weight of the decision pressed on her as she moved through her familiar routine, placing fresh pastries in the display case and brewing coffee. The bell above the door jingled, and Olivia looked up to see Nathan entering. He had become a regular presence at the bakery, arriving each morning to purchase a loaf of sourdough and often returning in the afternoon. Today he was dressed more casually than usual in dark jeans and a light sweater that made his blue eyes seem even more intense. "Good morning," he greeted her with a warm smile that Olivia found herself returning despite her conflicted feelings. "The usual?" she asked, already reaching for a fresh loaf of sourdough. "Please." Nathan watched as she wrapped the bread. "Have you had a chance to think more about my offer?" Olivia sighed, handing him the package. "I have, but I'm still not sure. It's not a decision I can make lightly." "I understand." Nathan paid for the bread, then hesitated. "I was wondering if you might be free this evening. There's something I'd like to show you that might help with your decision." Curiosity piqued. Olivia nodded. "I close at 6 today." "Perfect. I'll pick you up here at 6:30. After Nathan left, Maya emerged from the kitchen with a knowing smile. "You two seem to be getting along well." "It's not like that," Olivia protested, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "This is strictly business." "MMHMM," Maya hummed skeptically. "A billionaire walks into your bakery, falls in love with your bread, offers to save your business, and now wants to take you somewhere mysterious in the evening. Totally normal business relationship." "He's not taking me anywhere mysterious. He just wants to show me something related to his investment proposal." "If you say so," Maya grinned, returning to her work. Olivia tried to focus on her tasks throughout the day, but her mind kept drifting to Nathan. She couldn't deny that she found him attractive. Not just physically, though he certainly was handsome in an understated way. There was something compelling about his passion for her bread, his connection to his grandmother's memory, his unexpected vulnerability when he spoke about his past. But she also couldn't forget that he was Nathan Reed, tech billionaire, a man whose world was so different from hers that it might as well be another planet. Whatever was developing between them, professionally or personally, was temporary at best. Once the novelty of finding his grandmother's bread wore off, he would return to his life of board meetings and private jets, while she would still be here, up to her elbows in flour at 3 a.m. At 6:30 precisely, a sleek black car pulled up in front of the bakery. Nathan stepped out, opening the passenger door with a gesture that made Olivia suddenly conscious of her flour-dusted jeans and simple blouse. "I didn't have time to change," she apologized as she approached. "You look perfect," Nathan assured her, his eyes warming as they took in her appearance. "Besides, where we're going, flour is appropriate." Intrigued, Olivia slid into the passenger seat. The car was obviously expensive, all soft leather and gleaming surfaces, but not as ostentatious as she might have expected. "So, where exactly are we going?" she asked, as Nathan pulled away from the curb. "About 20 minutes out of town," he replied with a small smile. "It's a surprise." They drove through Millfield and out into the countryside, the rolling hills and farmland bathed in the golden light of early evening. Nathan asked about her day, listening with genuine interest as she described a special cake order she was working on for the weekend. "You really love what you do, don't you?" he observed. "I do," Olivia admitted. "Even on the hardest days when I'm exhausted and worried about bills, there's still something magical about creating something with my hands that brings people joy." "That's rare," Nathan said thoughtfully. "Most people never find work they're truly passionate about." "What about you?" Olivia asked. "Do you love what you do?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, considering. "I used to," he finally said. "In the beginning, when Mark and I were building the company from nothing, working out of his garage, solving problems no one had solved before, that was exciting. Pure creation." He sighed. "Now it's more about managing what we've built. Important, but not the same." "Mark?" Olivia prompted gently. "My co-founder and best friend since college," Nathan explained. "He died last year. Heart attack at 41. No warning." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly, understanding the weight of such a loss. "It changed everything," Nathan continued, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Made me question what I was doing with my life, what really mattered. I took a step back from day-to-day operations, started traveling, looking for something. I wasn't even sure what until I tasted your bread." The simple honesty in his voice touched something in Olivia. Like her, he was dealing with loss, with questions about purpose and meaning. They turned onto a narrow lane lined with ancient oak trees, driving for about half a mile before a building came into view, a stone farmhouse with a large barn beside it. Nathan parked in front of the house and turned to Olivia with an expression that seemed almost nervous. "This is what I wanted to show you," he said. Curious, Olivia followed him out of the car and toward the barn. As Nathan slid open the heavy wooden door, lights came on automatically, revealing a space that made Olivia gasp. It was a bakery, or rather, a bakery in progress. Gleaming stainless steel counters lined one wall. A massive stone hearth dominated another. Professional-grade mixers and ovens sat waiting to be installed. Large windows had been cut into the walls, flooding the space with natural light. "What is this?" Olivia asked, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. "My grandmother's dream," Nathan said, watching her reaction carefully. She always wanted a teaching bakery, a place where she could share traditional methods with a new generation. She never got the chance. Olivia ran her hand along one of the counters. And now you're building it? I bought this property 6 months ago. I've been renovating it slowly, not quite sure what I was working toward. Nathan moved to stand beside her. Then I found your bread. And suddenly, it all made sense. I don't understand, Olivia said, though a part of her was beginning to. This could be the future of sweetbread, Nathan explained, his eyes alight with possibility. Not replacing the bakery in town. That stays exactly as it is, a community cornerstone. But this could be an expansion, a place for classes, workshops, special events. A place to preserve and pass on traditional baking methods. The vision he was painting was so close to dreams Olivia had harbored but never spoken aloud that it took her breath away. And you want me to... Run it, Nathan said simply. Design it. Make it yours. Use it to build on your grandmother's legacy while creating something new. Olivia walked the length of the barn, trying to process what Nathan was suggesting. It was overwhelming, the generosity of it, the potential, the trust he seemed to be placing in her. Why? She asked finally, turning back to face him. Why offer this to me? You barely know me. Nathan took a deep breath, as if gathering his courage. Because in just a few days of knowing you, I've seen your passion, your skill, your dedication to preserving something meaningful. Because I think we could create something extraordinary together. There was something in his voice, a warmth that suggested he might be talking about more than just a business partnership. Olivia felt her heart beat faster. This is a lot to take in, she said, looking around at the space again. It's an incredible opportunity, but also a huge commitment. I know, Nathan acknowledged. And I'm not asking for an answer right now. I just wanted you to see the possibilities. They spent the next hour exploring the property. The farmhouse had been beautifully renovated, with a modern kitchen, comfortable living spaces, and even a small office. You could live here, Nathan suggested as they toured the house. If you wanted to. Or keep your apartment in town. It's entirely up to you. The sun was setting as they finally returned to the car. The golden light bathed the stone buildings in a warm glow that made the place look like something from a dream. What do you think? Nathan asked as they drove back toward town. I think it's beautiful, Olivia said honestly. And terrifying. And tempting. She glanced at him. But I still have questions. What happens to the original sweetbread? Who would run it if I'm out here? And what exactly would our partnership look like? All good questions, Nathan agreed. The way I see it, the town bakery remains the heart of the operation. You hire and train a manager to handle day-to-day operations there while you split your time between locations. As for our partnership, he hesitated. I'd provide the capital and business expertise. You'd bring the baking knowledge and creative vision. Equal partners. Equal? Olivia raised an eyebrow. Even though you'd be putting in all the money? Money is the easy part, Nathan said with a shrug. What you bring, the skill, the tradition, the heart, that's the real value. They drove in silence for a while, Olivia's mind racing with possibilities. The old sweetbread saved, preserved exactly as Gran had created it. A new venture that could expand her horizons, allow her to teach and create in ways she'd only dreamed of. It seemed too good to be true. Would you like to have dinner? Nathan asked as they neared town. We could talk more about the details. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. I'd like that. He took her to a small restaurant on the edge of town, a place known for its farm-to-table cuisine and cozy atmosphere. It was nice without being pretentious, a thoughtful choice that told Olivia he was paying attention to what might make her comfortable. Over dinner, they discussed the practical aspects of his proposal. Nathan outlined how the finances would work, how they would structure the business relationship, the timeline for completing the barn renovation. But they also talked about other things, their childhoods, their favorite books, places they'd traveled, music they loved. You're not what I expected, Olivia admitted, as they shared a dessert that she critiqued with professional interest. When Maya told me you were a billionaire tech CEO, I imagined someone. More arrogant? Less interested in sourdough bread? Nathan suggested with a smile. Something like that, Olivia laughed. The Nathan Reed I read about in articles seems very different from the person sitting across from me now. That Nathan Reed is real too, he said, his expression growing more serious. The driven businessman, the tech innovator, the person who can be ruthless when necessary. But it's not all of who I am. His eyes met hers. Being here, in a small town, in your bakery, reconnecting with memories of my grandmother, it's allowing me to be a version of myself I'd almost forgotten existed. And what happens when you have to go back to being the other Nathan Reed? Olivia asked, voicing the concern that had been growing in her mind. That's the thing, he said quietly. I'm starting to think that maybe I don't have to choose. Maybe I can find a way to integrate these parts of myself. There was a vulnerability in his admission that touched Olivia deeply. She was beginning to see that despite his wealth and success, Nathan was, in many ways, as uncertain about his path forward as she was about hers. After dinner, he drove her home to her apartment above the hardware store. The night was clear, stars visible even through the town's lights. Nathan walked her to the entrance of the building, maintaining a respectful distance that nevertheless hummed with unspoken tension. "Thank you for this evening," Olivia said, suddenly shy. "For showing me the farm, for dinner, for everything." "Thank you for giving my proposal serious consideration," Nathan replied. "Whatever you decide, I'm grateful for that." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with possibility. Olivia found herself noticing details about him, the way his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled, the faint scent of his cologne, how his hand rested just inches from hers. "Good night, Olivia," he finally said, stepping back slightly. "Good night, Nathan." As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Olivia felt a curious mixture of excitement and trepidation. The business opportunity was extraordinary, a chance to save Sweetbread while expanding into something new and wonderful. But there was something else developing too, something between her and Nathan that went beyond professional interest. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying and exhilarating possibility of all. The next morning dawned clear and cool. Olivia was at the bakery by 3 a.m. as usual, but her mind was far from her familiar routine. As she mixed and shaped dough, her thoughts kept returning to the stone barn with its gleaming counters and enormous hearth, to the vision Nathan had shared of what Sweetbread could become. And if she was honest with herself, to Nathan himself, to the warmth in his eyes when he watched her work, to the gentle way he spoke about his grandmother, to the surprising connection she felt with someone whose life was so different from her own. Maya arrived at 6, immediately sensing that something had changed. "Spill," she demanded, as she tied on her apron. "What happened last night?" Olivia told her about the farm, the renovated barn, Nathan's expanded vision for Sweetbread. Maya's eyes grew wider with each detail. "So you're going to say yes, right?" she asked when Olivia finished. "This is like a fairy tale. Handsome billionaire saves struggling bakery. Everyone lives happily ever after." "It's not that simple," Olivia sighed, though she couldn't help smiling at Maya's enthusiasm. "It's a huge change, a huge commitment. And there's the fact that Nathan's real life is in Silicon Valley, not Millfield. Once the novelty wears off—" "Maybe it won't," Maya suggested. "Maybe he's serious about wanting a change. People do that, reassess their lives, change direction. Billionaire tech CEOs don't usually change direction to become small-town bakery co-owners," Olivia pointed out. "Maybe not usually," Maya conceded. "But you didn't see the way he looks at you when you're not watching. That man is interested in more than just your sourdough recipe." Olivia felt her cheeks warm. We're not. It's a business proposition." "If you say so," Maya sang, clearly unconvinced. "But for what it's worth, I think you should go for it. Both the business part and the other part." The morning rush kept them too busy for further discussion. Olivia found herself watching the door, half expecting Nathan to appear for his now customary loaf of sourdough, but he didn't come. By afternoon, she was beginning to wonder if something had changed, if perhaps he'd reconsidered his offer. Maybe he'd realized that investing in a small-town bakery was a sentimental impulse rather than a sound business decision. Maybe he'd already moved on. The thought left her with a hollow feeling that surprised her with its intensity. In just a few days, Nathan Reed had somehow become significant to her, not just as a potential business partner, but as someone she looked forward to seeing, someone who made her think and feel in ways she hadn't in a very long time. At 4 o'clock, just as Olivia was beginning to accept that he wasn't coming, the bakery door opened and Nathan walked in. He looked different, tired, his usual composed demeanor slightly frayed around the edges. "I'm sorry I didn't come by earlier," he said, approaching the counter. "Something came up with the company. I had to spend most of the day on video calls." "Is everything okay?" Olivia asked, concerned by his appearance. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she was beginning to recognize as a sign of stress. "Yes and no. There's a situation with one of our major products that required my attention. It's under control now, but..." He sighed. "It was a reminder that my other life is still there, demanding my time and energy." "Of course it is," Olivia said gently. "You have responsibilities, a company to run." "Yes," Nathan agreed, his eyes meeting hers. "But being pulled back into that world today made me realize something important." He glanced around the nearly empty bakery. "Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Olivia nodded, turning to Maya. "Can you handle things out here for a bit?" "No problem," Maya assured her with a meaningful look that Olivia chose to ignore. She led Nathan to her small office, closing the door behind them. He took the visitor's chair while she leaned against her desk, suddenly nervous about what he might say. "What did you realize?" she asked when he didn't immediately speak. Nathan looked up at her, his expression serious. "That I want this more than I initially understood. Not just preserving a connection to my past through your bread, but creating something new. Something meaningful." "The bakery at the farm," Olivia said. "Yes, but more than that." He leaned forward, his eyes intent. "I want a life that balances what I've built with what truly matters to me. Mark's death showed me how fragile life is, how quickly it can end. I don't want to spend all of mine in boardrooms and business-class lounges." "What are you saying exactly?" Olivia asked, her heart beating faster. "I'm saying that this isn't just a side project for me, or a nostalgic impulse." Nathan stood, moving closer to her. "I'm serious about building something here, both the bakery and a life that includes more than just work. And I'm hoping you might be willing to build it with me, in whatever capacity feels right to you." The sincerity in his voice, the intensity of his gaze, they left no doubt about his meaning. This wasn't just about business anymore, if it ever had been. "Nathan," Olivia began, uncertain how to respond to the emotion swirling within her. "We barely know each other. A week ago, you walked into my bakery as a stranger. Now you're talking about building a life here?" "I know it sounds crazy," he acknowledged with a slight smile. "If someone had told me a month ago that I'd be standing in a small-town bakery, proposing a business partnership and possibly more to a woman I just met, I'd have thought they were insane." His expression softened. "But sometimes, rarely, you connect with someone in a way that defies normal timelines. I feel that with you, Olivia." The admission hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable and terrifying in its implications. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," Nathan continued when she didn't respond. "Just openness to possibilities. The business partnership is a separate offer. It stands regardless of anything else that might or might not develop between us." Olivia took a deep breath, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions his words had stirred. Fear, excitement, hope, doubt, all competing for dominance. "I need time," she finally said. "This is all happening so fast." "The business decision alone is huge, let alone..." She gestured vaguely between them. "I understand," Nathan said, stepping back to give her space. "Take all the time you need." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key, setting it on her desk. "This is for the farm. Go there, see it again, imagine what it could be. No pressure, no expectations." The gesture touched her, his willingness to literally hand her the keys to his property, to trust her with his vision. "Thank you," she said softly. "I have to fly back to California tomorrow," Nathan told her, and Olivia felt a surprising pang of disappointment. "There are some things I need to handle in person. But I'll be back in 3 days. Perhaps by then, you'll have a clearer sense of what you want." After he left, Olivia remained in her office, the key to the farm sitting on her desk like a question waiting to be answered. Could she really do this? Partner with Nathan Reed, expand Sweetbread into something new, possibly even explore the connection that seemed to be developing between them. It was frightening how much she wanted to say yes to all of it. The key to Nathan's farm lay on Olivia's kitchen counter, catching the morning light as she sipped her coffee. It had been 2 days since Nathan left for California, and she still hadn't used it. Part of her was afraid, not of what she might find at the farm, but of how right it might feel to be there. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Any decision yet about Billionaire Breadman's offer? Olivia smiled, despite herself. Maya had taken to calling Nathan that. Despite Olivia's protests, she typed back, "Not yet. Still thinking." The reply came quickly. "What's to think about? Say bakery, expand business, possibly fall in love with handsome billionaire who adores your bread. Seems simple to me." If only it were that simple. Nothing about Nathan Reed's sudden appearance in her life had been simple. The bakery phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Mrs. Abernathy, wanting to know if Olivia could make a special birthday cake for her husband's 70th. As Olivia took down the details, she was reminded of how deeply Sweetbread was woven into the fabric of Millfield. Generations of families had celebrated their milestones with her grandmother's baking, and now with hers. That connection to community was precious. Would expanding Sweetbread strengthen that bond or dilute it somehow? After finishing the call, Olivia made a decision. She grabbed the key, her jacket, and her purse. It was time to see the farm again, this time on her own terms. The drive out of town was peaceful, farmland stretching in all directions under a clear blue sky. As she turned onto the tree-lined lane leading to Nathan's property, Olivia felt a curious sense of anticipation. Without Nathan beside her, would the place still hold the same magic? The stone farmhouse looked even more charming in the morning light. Olivia parked and sat in her car for a moment, taking it all in. Then, key in hand, she approached the barn first. The space was exactly as she remembered. High ceilings, stone walls, gleaming counters, that magnificent hearth. But without Nathan's enthusiastic narration, she was able to really see it, to imagine it filled with people learning to shape bread dough, to picture herself teaching classes on pastry techniques, to envision special events celebrating the art of traditional baking. It was, she had to admit, almost exactly what she would have created if given unlimited resources and a blank canvas. Moving to the farmhouse, Olivia used the key to let herself in. The interior was warm and inviting. Modern amenities blended seamlessly with original features like exposed beams and wide plank floors. The kitchen was a chef's dream, with top-of-the-line appliances and ample counter space. Olivia wandered through the rooms, trying to imagine herself living here. It would be a significant change from her small apartment, but she could see herself curled up in the window seat with a book, cooking dinner in that kitchen, perhaps even hosting family gatherings in the spacious dining room. On the second floor, she found what must be Nathan's home office, a comfortable room with built-in bookshelves and a desk positioned to look out over the fields behind the property. There were no personal items visible. The room had the polished but impersonal feel of a space that wasn't regularly inhabited. The main bedroom was similarly appointed, beautiful but generic, like an upscale hotel suite. It struck Olivia that despite owning this lovely property, Nathan hadn't really made it a home. There were no family photos, no mementos, nothing that spoke of the man himself. It made her sad to think of him living this way, surrounded by beautiful things but no personal touches, no evidence of a life fully lived. Was that what success at his level cost? A life always slightly removed, always partly elsewhere? Returning to the kitchen, Olivia noticed something she'd missed before. An old cookbook on the counter, its cover worn with age and use. She opened it carefully to find handwritten recipes filling the pages, the script elegant but faded. Inside the front cover was an inscription. "To my dear Nathan, may these recipes bring you the joy they have brought me. With all my love, Grandma Rose." Olivia's heart tightened. This must be his grandmother's cookbook, perhaps the only personal item Nathan kept at the farm. She turned the pages gently, noting recipes for various breads, cakes, and pastries. And there it was, a recipe for sourdough bread that looked remarkably similar to her own family's method. Worlds colliding, she murmured to herself, struck by the strange coincidence that had brought Nathan into her bakery that day. She was still examining the cookbook when her phone rang. Nathan's name appeared on the screen, as if her thoughts had summoned him. "Hello?" she answered, suddenly conscious that she was standing in his kitchen without his knowledge. "Olivia, hi." His voice was warm, sending an unexpected flutter through her chest. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Actually," she admitted, "I'm at the farm. I hope that's okay." "More than okay," Nathan replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "That's why I gave you the key. What do you think, seeing it again?" "It's beautiful," Olivia said honestly. "Even more so than I remembered. And I found your grandmother's cookbook." There was a brief silence on the other end. That's special to me," Nathan finally said. "Her recipes, her handwriting, it's like having a piece of her still with me." "I understand that completely," Olivia told him, thinking of her own grandmother's recipe cards, carefully preserved in a wooden box in her kitchen. "The sourdough recipe looks very similar to mine." "I noticed that too when you first let me see your method," Nathan said. "I've been wondering if there's some connection there, if perhaps our grandmothers learned from the same source, or if traditional sourdough techniques just naturally converge on certain methods. Either way, it's a remarkable coincidence that brought you to my bakery," Olivia observed. "I don't believe in coincidences, not really," Nathan replied. "I think some things are meant to happen, even if we don't understand why or how." The sentiment should have sounded trite, but coming from Nathan, practical, successful businessman, it carried a different weight. "How are things in California?" Olivia asked, changing the subject. "Busy. Complicated." She heard him sigh. "The company is at a crossroads. Mark's absence is still felt every day, and there are some difficult decisions to be made about our direction going forward." "I'm sorry," Olivia said, hearing the strain in his voice. "That can't be easy." "It isn't," Nathan agreed. "But being there has clarified some things for me, things I want to discuss with you when I return tomorrow." "Tomorrow." The word sent a thrill of anticipation through her. I think I'll have an answer for you by then," she said. "About the partnership." "I look forward to hearing it," Nathan replied. "Whatever you decide, Olivia, I want you to know that meeting you has been significant for me. More than I can properly express over the phone." After they said goodbye, Olivia remained in the farmhouse kitchen, her mind a whirl of thoughts and emotions. Being here, seeing the potential of the place, finding the cookbook with its eerily familiar recipe, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. But there were still questions, still doubts. Could two people from such different worlds really build something lasting together, whether a business partnership or something more personal? Could Nathan Reed, tech billionaire, truly be content with a life that included small-town bakeries and teaching traditional methods to aspiring bakers? And perhaps most importantly, could she trust the feelings developing between them when everything had happened so quickly? As Olivia drove back to town, she found herself remembering something her grandmother used to say. "Fear and excitement feel the same in the body, sweetie. It's up to you to decide which one you're feeling." Right now, with the key to Nathan's farm in her pocket and his voice still echoing in her mind, Olivia was finally ready to admit that what she felt was both fear and excitement, twined together into something that felt remarkably like hope. The next day dawned bright and clear. Olivia was at the bakery early, as always, but today there was a new energy in her movements, a sense of purpose that had been missing in recent months. She had made her decision. Maya noticed immediately. "Something's different," she observed as she helped Olivia prepare for the morning rush. "You seem lighter." "I've decided to accept Nathan's offer," Olivia told her with a smile. "We're going to save Sweetbread and expand it to include the teaching bakery at the farm." Maya squealed and hugged her tightly. "I knew you would." "This is going to be amazing, Olivia. Just wait and see." "There's a lot of work ahead," Olivia cautioned, "and a lot of details to figure out, but yes, I think it could be amazing." "And what about the other part?" Maya asked with a knowing look. "The part where the handsome billionaire is clearly smitten with you?" Olivia felt her cheeks warm. "That's complicated. We barely know each other. His life is in California, mine is here. And yet there's something there, Maya finished for her. Something worth exploring? Maybe, Olivia admitted. Yes. The morning passed quickly. The bakery, busier than usual, with a large catering order for a local business meeting. Olivia was so absorbed in her work that she didn't immediately notice when the bell above the door jangled at precisely 10 a.m. Olivia. She looked up from the display case she was restocking to find Nathan standing there. He looked different somehow, more relaxed, less formally dressed in jeans and a simple button-down, his hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. Nathan, she said, straightening, you're back early. I caught the first flight out this morning, he explained. There were things I needed to tell you in person, not over the phone. The intensity in his eyes made Olivia's heart beat faster. I have things to tell you too, she said, but maybe not here. She glanced around the busy bakery where several customers were watching their interaction with undisguised interest. The farm, Nathan suggested. Olivia nodded. Let me just tell Maya I'm stepping out. 20 minutes later, they were sitting on the stone bench behind the farmhouse, overlooking fields that stretched to a line of trees in the distance. The spring air was fragrant with wildflowers, and birds called to each other from the old oaks that dotted the property. I've decided to accept your offer, Olivia said, breaking the silence that had fallen between them on the drive. I want to partner with you to save Sweetbread and create the teaching bakery here. The smile that lit Nathan's face was dazzling in its genuine delight. I can't tell you how happy that makes me, he said. I think we can build something truly special together. There are conditions, Olivia continued, wanting to be clear. The original bakery remains as it is. Same recipes, same methods, same feel. We renovate and update, but we don't change what makes it Sweetbread. Absolutely, Nathan agreed. That's exactly what I want too. And I need to be involved in all decisions, Olivia added. True partners, as you said. Of course. And, Olivia hesitated, then forged ahead. I need to know what your involvement will really look like. You said in the beginning that you'd be a silent partner, but then you talked about building a life here. Which is it, Nathan? Because I need to know what and who I can count on. Nathan looked at her directly, his blue eyes serious. That's what I flew back early to tell you, he said. I'm stepping down as CEO of Reed Technologies. The statement was so unexpected that Olivia blinked in surprise. What? But the company, your company, will continue under new leadership, Nathan finished for her. I'll remain on the board and retain my ownership stake, but the day-to-day operations will be handled by others. People I trust, people Mark and I trained. Why would you do that? Olivia asked, trying to process the magnitude of what he was saying. Because Mark's death showed me that life is too short to spend it doing things that don't truly fulfill you, Nathan said simply. I built Reed Technologies with my best friend because we had a vision of changing the world through technology, and we did that. But Mark is gone now, and continuing without him has felt. He searched for the right word. Hollow. He reached for her hand, his touch warm and surprisingly gentle for someone so powerful. Meeting you, tasting your bread, reconnecting with memories of my grandmother. It woke something in me that I thought was gone. A sense of purpose, of meaning beyond just success. And you think you'll find that purpose here? In Millfield? In a bakery? Olivia couldn't keep the note of disbelief from her voice. I think I'll find it in doing something authentic. Something that connects people to traditions and to each other, Nathan said. And yes, I think I might find it here, with you, if you're open to that possibility. The sincerity in his voice, the vulnerability in his expression, they touched something deep in Olivia's heart. This wasn't a man making grand gestures to impress her. This was someone who had looked at his life, a life most would envy, and found it wanting in the ways that truly mattered. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice soft. Scared of how fast this is happening. Scared of the feelings I'm developing for someone I barely know. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize that small-town life and sourdough bread aren't enough after the world you've known. I'm scared too, Nathan confessed, surprising her again. Scared of making another mistake, of investing myself in something or someone only to lose it again. Scared that you'll never see me as just Nathan, but always as the billionaire who walked into your bakery one day. His honesty was disarming, creating a space for her own truth. I don't see you that way, Olivia told him. Not anymore. I see someone who understands what it means to lose someone you love, to carry on their legacy while finding your own path. Someone who recognizes the value in things that can't be bought or sold. Tradition, connection, the simple joy of creating something with your hands. Nathan's expression softened, relief and something warmer lighting his eyes. That's who I want to be, he said. Not the person in those business magazines or tech blogs. Just Nathan, the boy who learned to bake bread from his grandmother, who found his way back to what matters through a chance encounter with a remarkable baker. He lifted her hand to his lips, the gesture old-fashioned and oddly touching. I'm not asking for promises, Olivia, just a chance to see where this might lead, both the business partnership and whatever is developing between us personally. Can we start there? Olivia looked at him, this man who had upended her life in the span of a week, who was offering her not just financial salvation for her family's bakery, but a vision of a future she hadn't dared to imagine for herself, a future that might include professional fulfillment and personal happiness in equal measure. Yes, she said finally, a smile breaking across her face like sunrise. Yes, we can start there. The relief and joy that transformed Nathan's expression made Olivia's heart swell. He pulled her gently into his arms, and as their lips met for the first time, Olivia had the strange and wonderful feeling that she had found her way home. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Legal papers were drawn up formalizing Nathan and Olivia's partnership. The original Sweetbread Bakery underwent careful renovations, updating the aging equipment and infrastructure while preserving its historic charm. Bills were paid, the landlord was appeased, and for the first time in months, Olivia could focus on baking without the constant weight of financial worry. Nathan divided his time between California, where he was transitioning out of his role as CEO, and Millfield, where he was becoming a familiar presence. The locals had been skeptical at first. A tech billionaire investing in their small-town bakery seemed too fantastical to be true, but Nathan's genuine interest in the community and his obvious admiration for Olivia gradually won them over. Work on the teaching bakery at the farm progressed rapidly. Nathan had assembled a team of craftspeople who specialized in historic renovations, ensuring that the new additions complemented the original structure. Olivia spent hours working with them, discussing layout, equipment, and the flow of the space. It was her vision coming to life, supported by Nathan's resources but shaped entirely by her expertise and passion. Their personal relationship developed more slowly, both of them conscious of the unusual circumstances that had brought them together and the significant differences in their backgrounds. They had dinner together most evenings when Nathan was in town, sometimes at local restaurants, sometimes cooking at the farm. They talked for hours, learning each other's stories, discovering shared values despite their different paths. And gradually, Olivia began to see a change in Nathan. The tension he had carried when they first met, a kind of restless energy that seemed to hum beneath his controlled exterior, was easing. He smiled more easily, laughed more freely, seemed more present in each moment, rather than mentally juggling 1,000 concerns. You look different, she told him one evening, as they sat on the porch of the farmhouse, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. More relaxed. Nathan considered this, his arm warm around her shoulders. I feel different, he admitted. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. Not trying to live up to some ideal of success or fulfill someone else's expectations. And that's a good feeling? Olivia asked, genuinely curious. The best, Nathan said simply. Like finding out who you really are beneath all the layers of who you thought you should be. Olivia understood that feeling. She had experienced something similar since accepting Nathan's partnership offer. A shedding of limitations she had placed on herself, expansion of possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider. The teaching bakery is almost ready, she said. changing the subject but not really. Maya's training is going well too. She'll be ready to manage the original Sweetbread when we open the new location. And you're comfortable with that arrangement? Nathan asked. Splitting your time between locations? Olivia nodded. More than comfortable, excited. I love the original bakery and always will, but the teaching program we're developing at the farm. She smiled, eyes alight with enthusiasm. It's going to be something special, Nathan. A place where traditional methods aren't just preserved but celebrated, passed on to a new generation. That's exactly what my grandmother would have wanted, Nathan said softly. To know that her passion for real bread, made with time and care, would continue. I've been experimenting with her recipes, Olivia told him, from the cookbook. They're wonderful. Different from my grandmother's in some ways, but with the same foundation of respect for ingredients and process. Two traditions coming together, Nathan observed. Just like us. The simple statement hung in the air between them, laden with meaning. Two traditions, two lives. Two people from different worlds, finding common ground in shared values, shared passions, and growing feelings that neither had expected but both now cherished. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Olivia leaned her head against Nathan's shoulder, content in a way she hadn't been in years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many in this unlikely partnership and budding relationship, they would face them together, bound by a connection that had begun with a loaf of sourdough bread but had grown into something far richer and more complex. Sometimes, Olivia reflected, the most important ingredients in a recipe are the ones you can't see. The patience, the care, the love that transforms simple elements into something extraordinary. Perhaps the same was true of life's most meaningful relationships. Nathan seemed to sense her thoughts, turning to press a gentle kiss to her forehead. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Bread," Olivia replied with a smile, "and beginnings. And how sometimes the most unexpected combinations create the most wonderful results." "Like a tech billionaire and a small-town baker?" Nathan suggested, his voice warm with affection. "Exactly like that," Olivia agreed, tilting her face up to his. And as their lips met in a kiss that felt like both a promise and a celebration, she knew with certainty that this was just the beginning of their story. A story as rich and complex and nourishing as the bread that had brought them together. 6 months had passed since Olivia accepted Nathan's partnership offer, transforming both Sweetbread Bakery and her life in ways she could never have imagined. The grand opening of the teaching bakery at the farm was just 2 weeks away, and Olivia stood in the center of the beautifully renovated barn, hardly able to believe what they had created together. The space was magnificent, warm wood, stone, and natural light combining to create an atmosphere that was both professional and inviting. The massive hearth dominated one wall, now fully operational and ready to bake bread the traditional way. Long wooden tables filled the center of the room, each equipped with everything students would need to learn the art of artisanal baking. A state-of-the-art demonstration area featured cameras and screens so that even those at the back could see the intricate details of each technique. "What do you think?" Nathan's voice broke into her thoughts as he entered through the side door, a stack of fresh brochures in his hands. "Does it meet your vision?" Olivia turned to him, unable to contain her smile. "It exceeds it. I never could have imagined this when you first showed me the barn. It's perfect, Nathan." The look of pleasure on his face warmed her heart. Over these months, she had come to recognize that expression. The quiet pride he took, not in his wealth or influence, but in creating something meaningful, something that mattered to her. "The first class is fully booked," he told her, setting the brochures on one of the tables. "And there's a waiting list for the advanced sourdough workshop." "I still can't believe the response," Olivia said, shaking her head in wonder. "People from all over the country wanting to learn traditional baking methods." "People are hungry for authenticity," Nathan replied, moving to stand beside her. "For connections to traditions that have been lost in our rush toward convenience and technology." His smile turned wry. "I say this as someone who made billions from that technology. The irony isn't lost on me," Olivia teased, leaning into his side as his arm slipped around her waist. "Tech billionaire finds meaning in ancient baking methods." "It would make a good headline," Nathan agreed with a chuckle. Though not as good as baker's bread, reminds Billionaire of childhood. He buys her bakery and her heart. Olivia laughed, turning in his arms to face him. Is that what happened? You bought my heart along with a steak and sweetbread? Nathan's expression softened, his blue eyes warm as they met hers. No, he said quietly. Your heart wasn't for sale. It was something I had to earn, day by day. The simple truth of his words touched her deeply. Their relationship had indeed developed gradually over these months, built on shared work, mutual respect, and a growing understanding of each other that went far beyond their initial attraction. You've done a pretty good job of earning it, Olivia admitted, reaching up to touch his face. The stubble on his jaw was rough against her palm, a reminder of how far he'd come from the polished executive who had first walked into her bakery. These days, Nathan looked more like a local farmer or craftsman than a tech mogul, and he seemed all the happier for it. I've had good motivation, Nathan murmured, leaning down to kiss her softly. The sound of a truck pulling up outside interrupted the moment. That must be the last of the equipment deliveries, Olivia said, reluctantly stepping back. We should make sure everything's correct. As they worked together to check in the delivery, specialized proofing baskets from France, hand-carved wooden bread stamps, and other traditional tools that were increasingly hard to find, Olivia marveled at how seamlessly they had learned to collaborate. Nathan's business acumen complemented her baking expertise. His vision for what could be balanced her practical knowledge of what worked. Together, they were creating something neither could have accomplished alone. The original Sweetbread Bakery in town was thriving too, with Maya now serving as manager, overseeing a small team of young bakers whom Olivia had trained. The bakery had expanded its offerings while maintaining the traditional recipes that had made it beloved in the community. The renovations had preserved its historic charm while making it more efficient and comfortable for both staff and customers. After the delivery was sorted and stored, Olivia and Nathan walked back to the farmhouse together. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the property, highlighting the changes they had made over the past months. The kitchen garden Olivia had planted was flourishing, providing herbs and some vegetables for their meals. The old apple orchard had been pruned and tended back to productivity, promising a bountiful harvest in the fall. Inside, the farmhouse had been transformed as well. What had once been a beautifully appointed but impersonal space was now unmistakably a home. Photos lined the mantel, Olivia with her grandmother, Nathan with his, the two of them together at the original bakery's reopening celebration. Olivia's collection of vintage baking tools was displayed alongside Nathan's books. Fresh flowers from the garden brightened every room, and the kitchen always smelled of something delicious in progress. I was thinking, Nathan said as they prepared dinner together, a routine they had established early in their relationship, about the scholarship program we discussed. Olivia looked up from the vegetables she was chopping. For aspiring bakers who can't afford the classes? Nathan nodded. I've set up a foundation to fund it. We can offer 10 full scholarships per quarter, covering not just the class fees but also travel and accommodation for those coming from further away. Nathan, that's wonderful. Olivia set down her knife and hugged him impulsively. That was one of my biggest concerns about the teaching bakery, that it might only be accessible to those who could afford it. I know, he said, returning her embrace. That's why it was important to me too. Real education should be available to anyone with the passion and dedication to learn, regardless of their financial situation. This was the side of Nathan that had surprised Olivia most over these months, his genuine commitment to using his wealth and influence to create opportunities for others. It wasn't about charity or tax write-offs for him. It was about building something meaningful that would outlast them both. As they sat down to dinner, a simple but delicious meal of roasted chicken, vegetables from their garden, and of course, fresh sourdough bread, Olivia found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed in 6 months, she admitted, pouring them each a glass of wine. If you had told me then what my life would look like now, I never would have believed you. What's changed the most for you? Nathan asked, genuinely curious. Olivia considered the question. It's not just the obvious things, the financial security, the expanded business, this beautiful place. She gestured around them. It's more about possibility. Before you walked into Sweetbread that day, I felt trapped by circumstances. Every day was about survival. about keeping my grandmother's legacy alive, but at a cost to my own dreams. She took a sip of her wine, organizing her thoughts. Now I feel like I'm not just preserving her legacy, but building on it, expanding it in ways that honor her work while creating something new. And personally, she met his eyes across the table. I've found a partnership I wasn't even looking for, with someone who understands both where I've been and where I want to go. Nathan reached across the table to take her hand. I feel the same way, he said quietly. For years, I defined success in terms of growth metrics and market share. Even after Mark died and I started questioning everything, I didn't know what else to reach for. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture that had become familiar and comforting. You and Sweetbread showed me that there's a different kind of success, one based on quality over quantity, on depth of experience rather than breadth of influence. We make a good team, Olivia said simply. The best, Nathan agreed. In the bakery and out of it. After dinner, they sat on the porch swing, watching as twilight settled over the farm. Fireflies had begun to appear, their gentle blinking like earthbound stars in the gathering darkness. I have something to show you, Nathan said, reaching into his pocket. Something I've been working on. He handed her a small velvet pouch. Curious, Olivia opened it and tipped the contents into her palm. A delicate gold chain slid out, bearing a pendant in the shape of a small loaf of bread, exquisitely detailed. Nathan, she breathed, holding it up to catch the last of the daylight. It's beautiful. Look closer, he urged. Olivia examined the pendant more carefully and realized that there was an inscription on the bottom of the tiny loaf. In minute but legible letters were the words, "Our daily bread, our daily joy." It's what my grandmother used to say whenever she took a fresh loaf from the oven, Nathan explained softly. I found it written inside the cover of one of her recipe books. And then I heard you say almost the exact same thing last week when you were testing recipes with Maya. Our daily bread, our daily joy, Olivia repeated, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift and the connection it represented between their family traditions. My gran used to say something similar. Bread is life and life is joy. I guess bakers everywhere understand the same fundamental truths. May I? Nathan asked, taking the necklace. Olivia nodded in turn so he could fasten it around her neck. The pendant settled just below her collarbone, a weight that felt right, significant. Thank you, she said, turning back to him. Not just for this, but for everything. For believing in Sweetbread when it was on the verge of closing. For seeing potential in me when I'd almost forgotten it was there. For being patient as I figured out how to balance preserving traditions with creating something new. You don't need to thank me, Nathan told her, his voice earnest. If anything, I should be thanking you. For letting me into your world. For teaching me about what really matters. For helping me find a purpose beyond just accumulating wealth and influence. As darkness fell completely, they sat in comfortable silence, the swing moving gently beneath them. Olivia's hand found Nathan's, their fingers intertwining with the easy familiarity of two people who had learned each other's rhythms. Have you heard from the team in California? She asked after a while, knowing that although Nathan had stepped down as CEO, he was still involved with Reed Technologies as chairman of the board. Yes, this afternoon, Nathan replied. The new AI healthcare initiative is moving forward. The early trials are showing promising results. Quote, there was pride in his voice, but it was different from the driven ambition she had sensed when they first met. This was satisfaction in work well done, in a project that would genuinely help people, without the consuming need to be at the center of every decision. That's wonderful, Olivia said sincerely. The idea of AI helping doctors diagnose rare conditions more quickly could save so many lives. That was always the vision Mark and I had, Nathan explained. To use technology not just to make money, but to solve real problems. Somewhere along the way, the business side started to overshadow that mission. He shook his head slightly. I'm glad to see the company returning to those roots, even if I'm no longer leading it day to day. Do you miss it? Olivia asked, a question that had been on her mind, but that she hadn't voiced before. The excitement, the cutting-edge innovation, being at the forefront of your industry? Nathan considered this thoughtfully. I miss certain aspects, he admitted. The intellectual challenge, The sense of creating something entirely new. But I don't miss the constant pressure, the endless meetings, the feeling that I was always racing against time and competitors. He turned to look at her in the darkness, his face illuminated only by the soft glow from the windows. And what I've found here, with you, with Sweetbread, with this community, is something I never had there. A sense of belonging, of putting down roots. The honesty in his voice reassured Olivia. She had worried sometimes, in quiet moments when doubt crept in, that Nathan might eventually grow restless in Millfield, might miss the high-stakes world he had left behind. But each day, he seemed to settle more comfortably into this new life they were building together. "I've been thinking," Nathan continued, his tone shifting slightly, "about the future, our future." Olivia's heart beat a little faster at his words. "Oh?" "These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life," he said simply. "Working with you, building something meaningful together, making this place a home. I don't want it to end." "Why would it end?" Olivia asked, though she thought she knew where he was heading. Nathan shifted on the swing to face her more directly. "Olivia Bennett," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion she could hear underlying it. "I know this isn't the most conventional relationship. We met because you make bread that tastes like my childhood. We became partners in a business before we really knew each other as people. We come from completely different worlds." "But?" Olivia prompted gently, feeling tears beginning to gather in her eyes. "But I love you," Nathan said, the words both simple and profound. "I love your passion and your principles. I love how you can be completely exhausted from being up since 3 a.m., but still stop to chat with every customer who comes into the bakery. I love watching you teach Maya and the other young bakers, passing on not just techniques but values. I love that you've helped me find meaning beyond success, connection beyond achievement." He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small box. Even in the dim light, there was no mistaking what it was. "I'm not asking because of the bakery or the business or any practical consideration," he continued. "I'm asking because I want to build a life with you, a real life, with all its messiness and beauty and daily bread and daily joy." Opening the box revealed a ring that took Olivia's breath away, not because of its obvious value, though the diamond was certainly beautiful, but because of its design. The band was fashioned to look like a stalk of wheat, wrapping around to support the central stone. "It reminded me of the wheat motif in your grandmother's original sweetbread sign," Nathan explained. "A symbol of sustenance, of growth, of life itself." Tears were flowing freely down Olivia's cheeks now. "Nathan," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Olivia Bennett," he said again, taking her hand. "Will you marry me? Will you continue this journey we've started? As partners in every sense of the word?" "Yes," Olivia managed through her tears. "Yes, of course, yes." Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, and then they were in each other's arms, the swing rocking beneath them as they shared a kiss that felt like a promise, a beginning, a continuation of something extraordinary that had started with a loaf of bread and a chance encounter. Later, as they lay together in the darkness of their bedroom, Olivia held up her hand, watching how the ring caught the moonlight streaming through the windows. "Happy?" Nathan asked softly, his arm around her waist. "Beyond happy," Olivia replied, "but also a little amazed. If you had told me a year ago that I would be engaged to a tech billionaire who wanted to run a bakery with me, I would have thought you were crazy." Nathan chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly against her back. "Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes for the better." "Definitely for the better," Olivia agreed, turning to face him. "You know what this means, though, don't you?" "What's that?" "We're going to have to make our own wedding cake. Nothing less than perfection will do." Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.